Ed Excel, GCSE, Mathematics Linear, Paper 2, Calculator, Foundation Tier. Monday, 1st of June 2009. Again, as in any examination, when I get to the formula page, I'm going to write down any formulas I know that I might need to remember during the course of the exam. For example, I might want to remember that the volume of the cuboid is the length times the width times by the height, or I may want to remember that the volume of a cylinder is pi times the radius squared times by the height. I also might want to write down any facts that I think may be useful to me in the exam that I might forget. For example, that there are 540 degrees for the interior angles of a pentagon. Again, what you write down here will be individual to you. Question 1 asks me to write down £3.50 in figures. So I'm just going to write down 3.50, making sure I've got 2 digits after the decimal point to signify my pence. 1b asks me to write down £3.05 in figures. So again, £3 and 5 pence. And 1c asks me to write down £3,510 in figures. So that would be £3,510. Question 2 shows me a right angle triangle and asks me to mark on the right angle triangle the actual right angle with a letter R. So I am going to mark on right angle and I'm going to put an R inside it. Part B tells me that this is a trapezium and I'm just asked to mark on an acute angle with the letter A, and I need to make sure that I do use the letter A. Now there are a couple of acute angles in this triangle. The first one is there, or I could have used this angle at the right hand side also. In part C, on the grid I'm asked to draw a kite, so I need to make sure that it actually is on the grid. So I'm going to start off by marking the top of my kite, and then I just need to use the other points on the grid to make a kite shape. And I need to join those up accurately with a ruler, making sure that I do actually use the points on the grid, not just close to the points on the grid. And again, this is much easier with a pencil, and you can draw a kite of any size, but that, with a little bit of effort, is what we're after. On question 3, I'm asked to draw a circle with a radius of 4 centimeters, base to O, and again I make sure I use the cross and not the letter O, okay? So just a quick sketch, I know that this distance here of a circle is the radius from the centre to the edge. So I need to get my compass and put my pencil in it, and I need to make sure that they both line up at the end. Now normally we make sure the pencil is nice and sharp, but to make sure you can see it I've left it a little bit blunt. Firstly, I need to measure it out to 4 centimeters. So placing the point on one end of my ruler, I'm going to measure out to 4 centimeters. I'm going to take my ruler off and I'm going to place the point of my compass on the centre of the cross. And then making sure I'm only touching the top of the compass, I'm going to draw a circle, and it doesn't matter if it takes a couple of swings, a couple of arcs, as long as you don't move that centre of the compass from the page. And what we're looking for there is just one nice smooth line. We don't want to see lots of shading or more than 3 or 4 goes of it. It should be one nice smooth line. On part B, I'm shown a circle and I'm just asked to draw a diameter on the circle now. I know a diameter is a line from one side of the circle to the other side, but it does have to go through the edge. You can draw any angle, doesn't matter. That would be a diameter. I could also draw a line from this side through the circle and its centre like that. Either of those lines would suffice as a diameter. On question 4, I'm given some prices of cinema tickets. £8.65 for an adult, £4.90 for a child, and £5.85 for a senior ticket. I'm told that Tony buys one child, which would be £4.90, and one senior ticket, which would be £5.85. And I'm asked to work out the total cost. Now obviously I can do this on a calculator. In this case I'm just going to do that without. So 0 add 5 is 5, 9 add 8 is 17, 4 add 5 is 9, plus 1 is 10, and that gets me an answer of £10.75. On a calculator, that will be a case of just typing in 4.90 and 5.85, and that will get me my answer of £10.75. Worth checking. On 4B, I'm told it's definitely buys adult tickets only, which are £8.65, so I know that they cost £8.65, and I'm told that she spends £60.55. So what I'm looking to do here is find out how many adult tickets does she buy. Well, I'm needing to do the sum, 60.55 divided by £8.65, and that should tell me how many tickets she buys. So 60.55 divided by, just move that over so you can see, £8.65, and I get an answer of 7. So she buys 7 tickets. In part C, Kamala buys 1 adult ticket and 2 child tickets. 1 adult and 2 child. So 1 adult would be £8.65, and 2 child tickets would be £4.90 each. If I add those up, 8.65 plus £4.90 and another £4.90, that comes to £18.45. I'm told that she pays with a £20 note, and I'm asked to work out the change. So I'm trying to do £20, take away £18.45. So again, on my calculator, £20, take away £18.45, £1.55. And I write that in the answer box, and again, making sure I've got 2 numbers after the decimal point to signify the pence. On question number 5, I'm told that the first even number is 2, and I'm asked to write down the third even number. So the even numbers go 2, 4, 6, so the third even number will be 6. In the second part of the question, I'm told that the pattern continues as follows, and I'm just asked to continue and finish off pattern number 4. So I can see that I need to have an extra line on the top, and one on the bottom, and a line in between. In part C, I'm asked to complete the table, which goes 3, 6, 9. Obviously it's going up in 3s, so I just need to continue adding on 3 each time. So I'll get 12 and then 15. Part D, I'm told that Jenny wants to find the number of sticks in pattern 100. Write down a method she could use. Well, I can carry on this table until I get to 100, and I'm just trying to work out how many sticks she would use. Now from looking at the table, I can see that to get from this number to this number, in all of these cases, we are multiplying by 3. So I could write down she could multiply the pattern number by 3. On question number 6, I'm told that there are red, yellow, orange, green sweets in a bag, and that they've been recorded in the bar chart. I'm then told that 8 sweets were orange and that 5 sweets were green, and I need to complete the bar chart. Now in your exam you'll do this with a ruler, and however I'm going to do it without, just for speed. 8 sweets were orange, so I'm going to draw a vertical line in the orange bar, going up to 8. And I'm told that 5 sweets were green, so again, I need in between the 6 and the 4, I'm going to need a line and create those bars for green and orange, and that'll get me 2 marks. Part B, I'm asked to write down the number of red sweets, which is given there as 6. And in part C, I'm asked what colour sweet is the mode, and mode is the most common. So I'm looking for the colour of sweet that is the most common. I can see from the bar chart that would be the colour with the highest frequency, which is yellow, making sure I write down yellow and not 10 for frequency. And in part D, I'm asked to work out the total number of sweets in the bag. Now to do that, I'm going to go along each bar and I'm going to label at the top how many there are, as shown by the bar chart. And then I'm going to add them up. 6, add 10, add 8, add 5. And if I add those up, I'm going to get 16, plus 8 is 24, add 5 is 29. So I would get 29 sweets. And again, as it's a calculator exam, if needs be, and just to check, you could add those up. and make sure that you did get 29. In question number 7, I'm given some 3D shapes, and I'm just asked to write down the names of the 3D shapes. So the first shape here is a cone, and the second shape here is a cylinder. On question number 8, I'm asked to write down the fraction of this shape that is shaded, and then I'm asked to give my answer in its simplest form. So I need to count the number of squares that are shaded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that would be 9 out of, and then add on the other shapes that are not shaded, and that would take me up to 12. So that's 9 out of 12, and I'm looking to simplify that. And from looking at both of these numbers, I can see that they both divide by 3. So 9 divided by 3 would be 3, and 12 divided by 3 would be 4, and that would be my answer, 3/4. In part B, I'm asked to shade 2/7 of this shape. A couple of ways of doing this. I can count how many squares there are to start with, so there's 1, and I can keep going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I know there are 7 in the first row, and I know that there are 3 rows, so there are 21 in total. So what I could do is attempt to turn 2/7 into a fraction out of 21, and from that again I can see that the bottom number has been times by 3, so I'm going to times the top number by 3, and that means I'm looking to shade in 6 out of 21. Another way of attempting this question will be to say that I'm going to shade in 2 out of every 7 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that I don't shade, and then again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that I don't shade, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you'll see at the end of it I have got what I said I would, which was 6 out of 21. In part C, I'm asked to write 3/10 as a decimal, and 3/10 as a decimal is 0.3. Part D, I'm asked to write 0.39 as a fraction, and 0.39 as a fraction will be 39 out of 100. On question 9, I'm asked to measure the length of the line AB in centimetres. I've got my ruler on the line. It looks to me like it is 6.4 centimetres, making sure that my answer is in centimetres and not in millimetres, so 64 millimetres wouldn't be an acceptable answer in this case. In part B, I'm asked to mark the midpoint of the line AB with a cross. So midpoint is the middle, so I want to find half of 6.2, and again, if you're not sure, you can do that on your calculator as it's a calculator test. So 6.4 divided by 2 is 3.2. So I'm looking to try and draw a line that's 3.2 centimetres long, so I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to place it on A, and I'm going to go to 3.2 centimetres. Now I think that's about there. Again, a bit tricky to do with a wide marker, and I'm told to mark it with a cross, so I will do. On question 10, I'm told that Sarah works in a post office. She's recorded the number of parcels posted on each of 16 days, and these are shown. And I'm asked to complete the frequency table to show her results. Now down the left hand side I've got the number of parcels, in the middle I've got the tally, and at the end I've got a column for the frequency. So I'm going to go through my results one at a time, 2, crossing them off and adding tallies as I go along. Number 2, when I get to the fifth 2, I'm going to draw a bar across my gate and then continue. Again, I need to leave a gap at the sixth 2 to show that it is separate from the first group of 5. And once I've completed the tallies, I need to add on the frequencies. So 5, 6, 7, 4 for 3s, 2 for the 4s, 1 for the 5, and 2 for the 6s. And I'm just going to check that this column here adds up to 16, because that's what it should total, given that it came from a list of 16 numbers. So 7 add 4 is 11, add 2 is 13, add 1 is 14, add 2 is 16. So I know I've got that right. In part B, I'm asked to write down the mode, and the mode again is the most common. So the most common number in the original list, or the table, depending on how you want to look at it, would be the one with the highest tally or frequency. And I can see that there are 7 2s, so the most common number is 2. Not 7, there are no 7s in this list. In part C, I'm asked to work out the range, and the range is the biggest number, take away the smallest number. Okay, so the biggest number in this list, again, from the list I can see that it is 6, and from the list I can see the smallest number would be 2, so 6 take away 2 would be 4. Again, those numbers you can find from the table because the biggest number is 6, the smallest number is 2. Note that the biggest number is not 7 and it's not 1, neither of those numbers is in the list. On number 11, I'm given a rule to work out the cost in pounds of hiring a carpet cleaner, and that rule is to multiply the number of days hired by 6 and then to add 4. And in part A, I'm told that Jill hires the carpet cleaner for 3 days. So I need to do 3 times by 6, which would give me 18. And then I need to do 18 add 4, which would give me 22. In part B, I'm told that Carlos hires the carpet cleaner and it costs him £52. So I need to work out for how many days Carlos hired the carpet cleaner. So his £52 needs to have 4 subtracted from it. Take care of the add 4 at the end, which gives me £48. And then I need to do £48 divided by 6 to find out how many days he hired the cleaner for. And that would be 8 days. A number of people I've seen like to attempt this by using a function machine, so times 6 and then add 4 to get me the original answer, so when I'm working my way back I can take away 4 and divide by 6. However you get to your answer is fine, we're looking for 8 days. On question 12, I'm asked to write down the number marked by the arrow. So as with any scale question, I'm going to try and find out what the scale goes up in. And it's usually one of the following numbers. So first off I'm going to try 1, so 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. So I can see from that it works and my scale is going up in ones, so 31, 32, 33. On part B, a similar type of question, I've got to write down what the arrow is showing, so I'm going to try and see what my scale is going up in. Now straight away from 100 to 200 I can see that going up in ones isn't going to work, so I'm going to try 5s to start with. 105, 110, 115, 120, 125, 130, 135, 140, 145 and 150, and it's not got to 200, but I can see that it is halfway there, so I know that my scale now goes up in tens, so I can work from 100 and count up in tens. This would be 150, 160, 170, 180. On part C, I'm asked to find the number 110 on the number line and mark it with an arrow. So again, I know it's past 100, and it's a question of which one of these 4 marks here it is. And to do that, again, I've got to try and work out which one of these numbers my scale goes up in. Now, it's obviously not 1s, because I'm not going to get to 125. 2s is similarly going to leave me with an even number here, 102, 104, 106, 108, and 110. And similarly, 4 would leave me with an even number. So I'm going to try 5s. 105, 110, 115, 120, 125. So it is going up in 5s. And therefore D, I'm asked to find the number 0.27 on the number line. Now obviously the scale can't be going up in any of these whole numbers up here, but what I can do is use decimalised versions of those numbers and see if I can find where the number 0.27 is. So first of all, it must be after 0.2, and I'm going to try going up in 0.1s. 0.21, 0.22, 0.23, 0.24, 0.25. And even at this stage I can see that this is going to work because I'm halfway, and I have made it halfway to 0.3. So I want 0.27, so 0.26, 0.27. On question 13, I'm asked to write down a multiple of 4 from the numbers in the rectangle, and it's important that I do use the numbers in the rectangle. So a multiple of 4, well, a multiple is just the times table, so 4, 8, 12, 16, and so on. So I just need to find which one of these numbers is in my 4 times table, and I can see that the number 12 is already there, so I can write down 12. In part 2, I'm asked to write down a factor of 21, and a factor is a number which divides into 21, and if I want to find them, I can very quickly try and find all the pairs of numbers that will multiply to give me 21. If I tried 2 times, it wouldn't work, so that's a no-go. If I tried 3 times, I can do my 3 times table, 3, 6, 9, keep going, and I will eventually get to 21, and there will be 7 3s in 21. And similarly for the numbers 4, 5, and 6, they won't divide into 21, and I've already shown 7, so I can stop there. So I'm looking for one of these 4 numbers in the list, and I can see 3 is there, so I'm going to use 3 as a factor of 21. Obviously you don't have to go through this if you can tell that 3 straight away divides into 21. I'm also asked to, in part 3, write down a prime number. Now the prime numbers are numbers that have only 2 factors. For example, 2 has exactly 2 factors, 1 and 2, and similarly 3 has exactly 2 factors of 1 and 3. So the prime numbers in this list, I'm looking for a number that has only 2 factors, and again I can use the number 3. I could have used the number 11. Any of those would suffice. On question 14, I'm asked to shade one more square to make a pattern with one line of symmetry, so I want one more square. Now I've got a couple of ways of making lines of symmetry, but in this instance I'm going to take the line of symmetry to be vertical straight down my shape, and from that I can see that I am missing this square on the right hand side. In part B, I'm asked to shade one more square to make a pattern with rotational symmetry of order 2, and that means it will look the same twice when I spin it through 360 degrees, and that includes when it finishes. So for this question I would always use a piece of tracing paper, and I would trace the shape that I've got, and I would mark on an arrow to show where I'm starting from. Now I'm going to spin this shape round, and I'm going to go around clockwise, and I'm going to see at what point I think I could shade a square to make it the same, so that it's twice exactly the same. Now from that point I can see that if I shade this square in here, it would look the same halfway through. So I'm going to shade in this square, and that gives me an order of rotational symmetry of 2 when I get back to the beginning. On question 15, I'm told that 36 students went to one revision class. Now 1/6 of the students went to physics revision. So I want to find 1/6 of 36. And I can do that by doing 36 divided by 6, which would get me 6. So 6 students went to the physics revision class. And I'm going to write physics next to it so I can remember that. Now there are other ways of doing this. One is to do it by equivalent fractions and say I've got 1 out of every 6 going to physics. So how many out of 36 would I get? And I can see that I've times the denominator by 6, so I'm going to times the numerator by 6, and that would be again 6 out of the 36 students. Again, I can do this by just continuing the times tables if I wanted to. I'm then told that 2/9 of the students went to the biology revision class, so again I want 2/9 of 36, and I can do that by finding 1/9 of 36, which would require me to divide it by 9, and that would be 4, and once I've found 1/9, 2/9 would simply be this number twice. So I'm going to do 2 times by 4, which gives me 8 students who went to biology. All of the other students went to the chemistry revision class. So everyone who's left went to chemistry, and I'm asked how many went to chemistry. Well, if I've got 6 at physics and 8 at biology, that gives me 14 students at either physics or biology, and therefore at chemistry I'd have the difference between 36 and 14, which would be 22 students. So there are 22 students went to chemistry. On question 16, I'm given some information about the numbers of fish in a lake, and I'm told that there are 10 perch, 23 bream, and 39 carp. And I'm asked to draw an accurate pie chart to show this information. Well, in a pie chart, I know that there are 360 degrees. Now I can see that if I add up 10, 23, and 39, I'm going to get 33, and add 39, I'm going to get 72. And that is not 360 degrees. So what I need to do is find out how much I need to multiply the 72 by to take me up to 360 degrees. And the easiest way of doing that is to do 360 divided by 72. Now, you can do that on your calculator. 360 divided by 72 equals 5. So 5 is what I would consider to be my multiplier, which is what I need to multiply each of these numbers by to find out the correct angle. So here I need to do 10 times 5, which would get me 50, and this would be my angle in the pie chart. Here I need to do 23 times by 5, which would be 115, and again, if you need to use your calculator you can do. And here I'll be doing 39 times by 5. In that case, that would be 195 degrees. I then need to take my protractor and working round from the line that they've drawn on, I need to measure my first angle of 50 degrees. So placing my protractor so that the crosshairs line up with the centre of my pie chart, and the 0 line is going straight up. I'm going to measure around from 0 until I get to an angle of 50 degrees. So 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and I'm going to put a little mark on the pie chart. And then I can join that line up. It's a little tricky with a felt tip, but that would be the first section on my pie chart, which would be perch. I then need to measure my angle of 115 degrees from this line. So again, I would rotate the paper so that I have that line facing straight up, and I would place my protractor again on the centre and measure around 115 degrees. So using the numbers on the outside, I'm going to get round to 115 degrees. Again, joining that up just to the edge of my pie chart, I get that my pie chart looks like that, with this section being equal to bream. Now the final section should be carp, which is this section here, and that should be 195 degrees. On question 17, I'm shown a cuboid, and I'm asked to calculate the volume of the cuboid. Now I know the volume of the cuboid is the length times the width times by the height. So in this case, I'm going to use the length as 3 centimeters. I'm going to use the width as 4.5 centimeters, and I'm going to use the height as 6.5 centimeters. Now, it doesn't actually matter which one you call the length, the width, or the height, as long as you multiply the 3 numbers together. So I need to do 3 times by 4.5 times by 6.5, and that gets me 87.75. Now I need to make sure I get my units correct. They've given them me, so I'm okay, and that's centimeters cubed, and I can see that from the calculations I've written down here, as I've written down centimeters 3 times. On question 18, I'm given a formula for f, which is f equals 1.8c add 32. And I'm asked to work out the value of f when c is negative 8. So I'm going to write out my formula and substitute in the value for c of negative 8, remembering that 1.8c means 1.8 multiplied by the value of c, which is negative 8. And then I'm going to add 32. Now, if you're comfortable using your calculator and you're happy that this is going to be done in the right order using the rules of BODMAS, you can enter that directly into your calculator, provided you're able to find the negative button on your calculator, which is down the bottom here. So negative 8, now I need to add 32. And that's going to give me my answer of 17.6. Now you can of course do this sum in two stages and do 1.8 times by -8. To get -14.4, and then take that and add on 32. And if you just press add 32 on your calculator, it retains the answer from before, and it will still give you 17.6. Either way, same answer. In part B, I'm told to work out the value of C when f is 68. So if I write my formula out, I know that f is equal to 1.8 multiplied by the value of C, add 32, and in this instance I'm told that f is 68. So underneath f I'm going to write 68. I'm now left with an equation that I need to solve. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this add of 32 on the right hand side by subtracting 32 from the right hand side, and obviously if I've done that on the right, I need to do that on the left to balance it out. Subtracting 32 from both sides would leave me with 1.8 times by C on the right hand side, and on this side I would be left with 36. Now what I need to do is remove the 1.8 times, and to do that I'm going to do the opposite of multiply, which is divide. So divide by 1.8, and again that will give me my value for C. Now 36 divided by 1.8 I can do on my calculator, so 36 divided by 1.8 equals 20. So the value of C is 20. In question 19, I'm asked to use a ruler and compasses to construct the bisector, which means to split in half, of this angle. I need to show all of my construction lines. And they're trying to tell you not to use a protractor. We won't want to see anyone trying to use a protractor to measure and split this angle in half. You're not going to get any marks for that. They're very clear they want you to use a ruler and a compass. So I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to put the point on the end of the angle, and I'm going to draw myself an arc that intersects both this line and this line. And then I'm going to take my compass without changing it, although it won't matter if I do. I'm just going to keep it the same, and I'm going to draw another arc roughly in the middle of the angle from that point, and then I'm going to repeat the process from the other point, and they will cross at this point here. Now, if I take my ruler and join that point to the vertex of the angle, I will have split the angle in half. And as ever in the exam, I should be able to then roughly check that with my protractor. The original angle was in the region of 49 degrees, and the angle I've drawn on is roughly 24. So I have bisected that angle. In question 20, I'm told that Tanya went to Italy and she changed £325 into euros. And I'm given an exchange rate here of £1 is equal to €1.68. And then I'm asked to change the £325 into euros. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the exchange rate down over here. And I don't want £1, I want to have £325. So I can see that I'm going to require 325 lots of £1. So I'm going to multiply 1 by 325, and therefore I'm going to multiply €1.68 by 325 as well, and that will give me this answer here, which will be how many euros. So if I do 325 times by 1.68, I'm going to get my answer. Now on a calculator, reasonably straightforward. 325 times 1.68, 546. So £325 is 546 euros. In part B, I'm told that when she came home, she changed 117 euros back into pounds, and I'm given a new exchange rate here of £1 is equal to €1.50. And I want to know what 117 euros is. So I'm going to line this up under the euros, and that will be 117 euros. Now at the moment I can't quite see what I'm going to multiply 1.5 by to get straight to 117, so I'm going to put an intermediate stage in and go down to €1. So to go down to €1 from 1.50, I'm going to divide by 1.50. And then once I've got €1, I can multiply by 117, and that will tell me what 117 euros is. Now, as I've done divide by 1.50 and times by 117 on the right hand side, I'm going to have to do the same on the left hand side. So my answer is going to be 1 divided by 1.50 times by 117. On a calculator, 1 divided by 1.50 times by 117 is going to be 78. So my answer would be £78. Now I can do that in one step by doing 117 divided by an exchange rate of 1.50. And again, 117 divided by 1.50 equals 78. However, I think this here gives me more of an idea of what's going on. On question 21, I'm shown a scatter graph which shows information about 8 sheep, and it is the height going horizontally and the length going vertically. And the table below gives me a couple of extra sheep which I need to add onto the scatter graph. So the first one is at a height of 65, so I'm going to locate that on my horizontal axis, and a length of 100, which I'm going to locate on the vertical axis. And I just need to put a cross at the intersection of those two. And the second sheep is at a height of 80, which would be across here, and the length of 110, which would be up here. And again, I just need to place a cross at the intersection of those 2 points. In part B, I'm asked to describe the relationship between the height and the length of these sheep. And as I'm not asked to describe the correlation, I'm going to describe in words the link between the height and the length. Now I can see from my scatter graph that as the height goes up, across this way, the length of the sheep is also going up. In part C, I'm told that the height of a sheep is 76 centimeters, and I'm asked to estimate the length of this sheep. Now, despite not explicitly saying that I have to, this means that I need to draw on a line of best fit. And there are very few scatter graph questions where you are not asked to draw a line of best fit, so it's always worthwhile drawing one on anyway. To do that, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to try and draw a line roughly between the points, keeping the distance between the line and the points minimized. Now, there are now 10 points on my graph, so I want roughly 5 points either side of my graph. Now, there's a temptation to always have the line of best fit going through the origin down here, but in this case, and in most cases, it's got to be as close to the points as possible, which means it does not have to go through that point. So I think roughly there is a good guess, and I'm going to go all the way across my scatter graph, and just to check, I've got 1, 2 points above and 1, 2 below, and the rest roughly on the line. So back to the question, I'm told the height of the sheep is 76 centimeters, so I'm going to go to the height axis and 76, which is here. I'm going to draw a line up to my line of best fit. And once I've hit the line of best fit, I'm going to go across, and I'm going to read off from the vertical axis that number there, which is 109. So the estimated length for the sheep is 109 centimeters. On question 22, I'm asked to draw an enlargement of scale factor 2 of the shaded shape. That means I'm going to have to multiply all of the sides by 2. So I'm going to just go over the original shape so that you can see it a little bit more clearly. This is the original shape. And this side here is 3 squares long, this one here is 3, and all the others 1 square long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of those distances and I'm going to multiply them by 2. Okay, so if I do 3 times by 2, I'm going to get 6. And the only other distance I've got is 1, so if I times that by 2, I'm going to get 2. So I need to draw a shape that has a side that comes down the left hand side that is 6 squares long. I'm going to start here, and I'm just counting my way up 6 squares. So 1, 2, 3, and that will be 6 squares there. And then I'm going to join that up, and that's the left hand side of my shape. Now the bottom of my shape should be 3 times by 2, so again that's going to be 6. So 1, 2, 3, 6 squares long, and I can join that up. And all the rest of my distances are going to be 1 times by 2, which will be 2. So I'm going to go 2 squares up from here, 1, 2, and just continue that round. And then it's a simple case of joining up all of those points to make my enlarged shape. Now notice I could have started this shape anywhere as long as it fits on the grid, so it didn't have to start at this bottom left hand corner. I could have started it somewhere down here. As long as it fits on the grid, it can go anywhere you like. On question 22b, I'm asked to describe fully the single transformation that maps triangle A onto triangle B. So this is triangle A, and this is triangle B. And I can see that the transformation I require is either going to be a reflection, a rotation, a translation, or an enlargement. Now translation is a movement, so I can see that the shape hasn't been moved as it has flipped over, so it's not a translation. I can also see that it's not a rotation. I could try with tracing paper, but I can't spin this shape round and make it go onto shape B, so it's not a rotation. And similarly, the shape hasn't enlarged, so that rules out enlargement. So it must be a reflection. So the first word I'm going to write down is reflection. And all I need to do now is give a equation to the line of symmetry. So this is my line of symmetry down the middle, and I know this because it's 1 square away that direction to A, and it's 1 square away to B. So that line is exactly in the middle. So there's a couple of ways I can describe that line. I could put that it is the y-axis, or I could describe it in terms of its coordinates. So this coordinate down here would be 0, 0. This coordinate here would be 0, 1. This coordinate here would be 0, 2. And I can see from that that all of my x coordinates are 0 all the way up this line. So I could have written reflection in the line x equals 0. Either of those would have sufficed. On question 23, I am asked to simplify m, add m, add m, add m. And that's nice and easy for m. In part B, p times q times 4. Well, p times q is a matter of removing the multiply and writing them in alphabetical order, and the number 4 should come first. In 23 part C, I'm asked to expand 5 and in brackets 3x minus 2. And this means 5 lots of 3x minus 2. So I've got a couple of ways of doing that. The first, the most long-winded, is to actually write it out 5 times. And I can see from that I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 3x, 6x, 9x, 12x, 15x. And it must be a takeaway in the middle. So that's my answer, 15x minus 10. Now, a much quicker way of doing this is to multiply everything outside the bracket by everything inside the bracket. Again, a couple of ways of doing this. I'll just show you my favourite, which is to write a 5 at the front and 3x minus 2 along the top. So 5 times by 3x would be 15x, and 5 times by 2 would be 10. So 5 times by negative 2 would be negative 10. Again, the same answer as we got using the first, slightly more laborious method. Question 23d, I'm given a similar type of question, but this time I've got a 3y term in front of the bracket. So I'm going to use the second method for this, writing 3y at the front and y add 4 along the top. Now y times by y would be y squared, So 3y times by y would be 3y squared. 3 times by 4 would be 12. So 3y times by 4 would be 12y. And I've got an add here, so I've still got an add there. So my final answer would be 3y squared plus 12y. On question 24, I'm told there are some sweets in a bag, and that 18 of the sweets are toffees. I'm told that 12 of the sweets are mints, and I'm asked to write down the ratio of the number of toffees to the number of mints, which I've just done. I'm then told to give my ratio in its simplest form, and that is a case of trying to locate times table, which both 12 and 18 are in. And I can see from that they're both in the 6 times table, so I can simplify this down to 3 and 2. I can't divide either of these numbers by the same number now, apart from 1, which would still leave me with 3 and 2, so that is it in its simplest form. In part B, I'm told that there are some oranges and apples in a box. So I'm going to write oranges and apples, and I'm told that the total number of oranges and apples is 54. So there must be a column for total as well. The ratio of the number of oranges to apples is 1 to 5. So 1 orange for every 5 apples, which would give me a total of 6, simply by adding 1 and 5 together. In the question, I'm told that the total number of oranges I have, apples and oranges, is 54. And I'm asked to work out the number of apples in the box. So what I need to do is figure out how many lots of 6 I need to get to 54. And that is times by 9. If you want, you can do that on your calculator and do 54 divided by 6, and it will tell you that multiplier of 9. I'm going to multiply both sides by 9. So I'm going to have 1 times 9, which will be 9, and I'm going to have 5 times 9, which will be 45. And I'm just going to check that 9 add 45 is 54, and it is. And then I'm going to make sure I answer the question, which is work out the number of apples in the box. So in my answer box, I'm going to write 45. On question 25, I'm given the times and minutes taken to repair 80 car tyres. And the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I understand the table. So the time in minutes is here, between 0 and 6. And 15 cars took between 0 and 6 minutes to be repaired. 25 cars took between 6 and 12 minutes. And 20 cars took between 12 and 18. And then I'm asked to calculate an estimate, meaning it's not the exact value, for the mean. And I know the mean is to add them all up and divide by how many there are. Now, of these 15 car tyres that have been repaired here, I know they're all between 0 and 6, but I don't know exactly what value they were. So I need to come up with an estimate for that time. Now, it seems reasonable to assume that if they're between 0 and 6, that I am going to go in between 0 and 6, which would be 3. And that value is called the midpoint. And if you're not sure how to work out the midpoint, or it's not obviously apparent, what you can do is take the smallest value, 0, add on the largest value, 6, which will give me 6, and then half that to go in the middle, which will give me 3. So the midpoint of the first group is 3. It's then a simple matter of repeating that for all subsequent groups. So midpoint of 6 and 12 will be 9, for 12 and 18 it will be 15, for 18 and 24 it will be 21, and for 24 and 30 it would be 27. I now need to work out what these 15 repairs that were each 3 minutes long would take in total, and to do that I'm going to multiply them together. So if I have 15 repairs each of 3 minutes, then I have 45 minutes in total. If I have 25 repairs each of 9 minutes, how much do I have in total? If I have 20 repairs each of 15 minutes, again I can work out the total. And I can carry on and do that for all the rows of my table. Now, as this is a calculator exam, I can do 25 times by 9, which is 225. And I can keep going down, working out 20 times 15, 300, 12 times 21, 252, And finally, 8 times by 27, 216. I now have what all the times add up to, and I also have how many times there were. And now it's a case of adding up this column and that column. So the first column I'm going to add up is the frequencies, which would be 15, add 25, add 20, add 12, add 8, which would give me 80. So the total frequency is 80. And then I'm going to add up the total time, so 45, add 225, add 300, add 252, and add 216, gives me the total time of 1038. Now, I know that to find the mean, I need to take what they all add up to divided by how many. So the estimated mean, and it is just an estimate because of what we did originally with the midpoints, would be 1038 divided by 80, which would give me an answer of 1038 divided by 80, 12.975 minutes. Now, I'm not asked to round that, so that would be my final answer. On question 26, I'm asked to simplify t to the power of 6 times by t squared. So t to the power of 6 is t times by t times by t, and keep going until I've written it out 6 times. And I'm going to multiply that by t squared, which is t times by t. So in total I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 t's. So my answer will be t to the power of 8. In part B, I'm asked to simplify m to the power of 8, so m times m times m, and again I keep going until I've written 8 m's. One more, and I'm going to divide that by m to the power of 3, so m times m, and again until I've got 3 m's. Now, as with all fractions, I can cancel as long as I divide the top and the bottom by the same. In this case I'm dividing both by m, and I can repeat that process a further 2 times, leaving me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 m's, so m to the power of 5. And we can see from this question there are a couple of shortcuts. When I'm dividing with indices, I can simply take the powers, 8 take away 3, and that will give me 5 that I got here. And similarly, when I multiplied the powers, I can take the powers 6 and 2 and add them, and that gets me the 8 that I got here. On question 27, I'm asked to work out 4.6 added to 3.85 and then divide that by 3.2 squared, take away 6.51. Now, a couple of ways to do this. The first way is I'm going to work out the numerator, the number on the top of the fraction, separately. And then I'm going to work out the number on the bottom, the denominator, and then I'm going to take those two answers and I'm going to divide them. So again, on my calculator, 4.6 and 3.85, 8.45, and then 3.2 squared, 3.2, and I'm going to use the squared button, which is up here, squared, take away 6.51, which gives me 3.73. And now I'm simply going to divide these two numbers. So I'm going to do 8.45 divided by 3.73. Which gives me an answer of 2.2654155, and it does ask me to write down all the numbers on my calculator display. Now that's the first way of doing it. The second way of doing it is to use your calculator and the brackets. So whenever a fraction is formed, there are brackets that appear on the top and on the bottom. We just don't write those in. So I can actually enter this on my calculator in one go if I put brackets at the start and then 4.6 add 3.85 and then close those brackets and divide that by and open the brackets on the bottom of the fraction, 3.2 squared, take away 6.51. And again I get the same answer. Either way is fine, it's worth doing it both ways just to check. Part B, I'm asked to give my answer to 27 part A to one significant figure. So one significant figure, the first significant figure is the very first non-zero number, and I'm going to look at the number directly afterwards, the 2, to make a decision as to whether this is going to stay as a 2 or whether it's going to be rounded up to 3. And as this is less than halfway, this is going to stay as 2. So to one significant figure, that number would be 2. On question 28, I'm given the tile in the shape of a semicircle, and I'm told that the diameter is 8 centimeters, and therefore the radius would be 4 centimeters. I don't know if I need that in the question, but it's always useful to make a distinction between the diameter and the radius. I'm asked to work out the perimeter of the tile, and the perimeter of this shape would be this part of the shape, which is an arc, which is part of a circle. In this case, it's half of a circle, but also this distance across here, which is the diameter of this semicircle. And I'm asked to give my answer to 2 decimal places. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine this as a full circle. And I'm going to work out the circumference of that full circle, which will be pi times by the diameter. So pi times by 8. So the circumference of that imaginary full circle would be 8 pi. Now I don't want the full circumference, I don't want all the way around, I just want this arc in blue. So I'm going to half that, and I'm going to find half of C, which will be this answer here, 8 pi divided by 2. And 8 pi divided by 2 is going to be 4 lots of pi. And I haven't worked this out on the calculator at this stage, just to simplify calculations somewhat. Okay, so I now know the length of this arc is 4 pi, and I need to add on to it the distance across the circle, the diameter, to give me my perimeter. So my perimeter is going to be 4 pi, which I've worked out down here, and I'm going to add on the 8. And all I need to do now is work that out on my calculator. So 4 pi add 8 is 20.56637061. And again, that will be centimeters. And to finish the question, all I need to do is round to 2 decimal places. So first off, find the second decimal place, which is this 6 here, because it is 2 spaces after the decimal point. Look at the number afterwards, which is a 6, which is past halfway. So that's going to round that number up by adding 1, and I'm going to get 20.5, the 6 out of the 1 would be 7. And that concludes the exam paper.